In today's episode of Sum It Up, we are talking about a new program where Lee Summit R7 School District students in Machine Tooling Pathway will be working with a local business partner, JCI Industries.
Do you really want to get your hands on and get them dirty? This is probably the best way to do it. That was always the biggest thing with me. I always enjoyed working with things with my hands. Ever since I was a kid, I've always taken things apart, put them back together, and now knowing I could even just do this as a job, it can be something that you would really enjoy.
My name is Jeff Buckner, and I am one of the Career Technical Education Curriculum Specialists in the Lee Summit School District. In this program, the students will manufacture a part in accordance with the JCI Industry Blueprint and have the part go through the JCI Industry Quality Control Inspection process. If the part passes the QC inspection, the students will receive a certificate of completion. This certificate can be used as part of a youth apprenticeship application if the student wants to continue in the field of machine tooling. We're joined here today with one of the Lee Summit High School Industrial Tech teachers, along with 3 of his current machine tooling students. Mr. Smith, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce your 3 fine gentlemen that are joining us today?
Yeah, I've been in the school district for 22 years. I've taught metal tech, welding, small engines, woods. But today we're here to talk about machine tool. And I have with me here Gavin Mears, Luke Braun, and Carter Wainwright. And I've had these 3 students since COVID of last year, and they didn't get a whole lot of hands-on. They came in to take a hands-on class and kind of missed out on that, and we are making up for lost time now.
Excellent. Thank you very much for being here, guys. We're excited to hear about these experiences in your machine tooling class. Mr. Smith, would you share with us a little bit about how this partnership with JCI got started?
Yeah, I was approached by some people at central office about having a National Manufacturing Day field trip and bringing students over from a metal tech class over to see JCI Industries.
Excellent. And how did that trip go? How many students were on that trip?
I believe there's around 20 to 25 that came from the 3 area schools.
That's right. We had 8 students from Lee Summit High School, 7 from Lee Summit West, and I think you had the most at Lee Summit High School of around 12.
Yep.
Very cool. What was one of the biggest surprises of that student trip?
How much Danny and Brian were excited to work with us, and then as we walked through the tour, I saw one of my former students, Josh Wales, that had been working there, and I've lost track of him. I believe he graduated in 2007.
Wow! So he's one from your original program in 2007.
Yes.
That is amazing. Can you give me a little bit of detail? Who is Danny? Danny there.
Danny's the lead machinist. He's kind of the senior guy that everyone goes to if they have a question. He is responsible for setting up the entire shop. He's built it from, I think, 2012 when they started, and has built it all the way back. They've expanded it, almost doubled in size.
That is so cool. And again, they're a local company, right?
Correct.
That's cool. How has JCI stepped up and impacted the current course experience for our Lee Summit R7 students?
They've given them real-world applications, internships, an apprenticeship, opportunities. We are discussing that right now. It's the first time we've really had this much of involvement with community willing to work with us in the machine tool program.
So has this been exciting for you as a teacher?
Absolutely.
Okay, very cool. Well, let's talk to some of our students here. So Carter, could you share some experiences that Danny and Josh provided in those morning partnerships?
Yeah, one of the most impactful experiences with me that they kind of taught us was how to tram in the machines, which is the process of getting the spindle and which holds the bit or mill square with the vise, which holds your work, so any cuts that you make are true and within tolerances you want to be within.
Yeah, so I guess your machine has to be pretty much right on spec if you're going to push out a quality product, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Luke, please share a couple maintenance topics that Danny and Josh may have covered in this partnership time.
So when they first came over to Lee Summit High School, they showed us to be able to bring Scotch-Brite. They just brought that over and helped us clean the machine surfaces and showed us how to do regular maintenance and keep the machines healthy and be able to have them last a while.
For our audience, what is Scotch-Brite?
Scotch-Brite is just like it's almost like steel wool, but it's just a plasticky, it's for, I guess, deep cleaning and whatnot.
Very cool. Because, yeah, you can't, machines are everything if you're wanting to come out with a quality product, that's for sure. Gavin, how has this partnership with JCI changed your opinion or interest in machining?
Last time I did machine was before COVID. It was in Mr. Smith's first metal class, which was basically the overview of everything metal, from machining to welding to even sheet metal fabrication. And it was eye-opening to me. It has inspired, it's what launched my interest in machining. And Mr. Smith saw that in me, and he invited me the same year to join his metal technology or machine tool technology class, which is the advanced version, which focuses just on machining. But then after that year, COVID hit, and that's when we were all forced out of schools, have to do it from home, and you can't do anything from home. Everything's at our school and machine shop. But now, since that it's all getting back to normal and COVID regulations are going down, I've now been introduced back into his class, retake it just to get that feeling again, and seeing that we were going to be actually working with machinists or professional machinists that work at a real world company, it gave me an idea of what machining could be for my future. That's when I truly saw that I could do this the rest of my life. And it's just inspired me for it.
That is really awesome. Really awesome. Luke, so we talked about the maintenance of the machines and cleaning the machines. Have they had the opportunity to provide you with any machining practices that are new compared to your previous metals classes and such?
So they've showed us how to use cutting fluids and cutting oils to get a better finish on our products and our like handles and whatnot. They help us with keeping the part cool so the part doesn't expand and mess up our cutting and mess up our tolerances. It helps with keeping our bit and our machine healthy.
Carter, do you have a machining process that stands out to you that Danny and Josh has brought to the table?
One thing that we haven't done much in the past, but since they've been working with us, we started talking about tolerances, which is basically how close a part needs to be to what the blueprints say as far as measurements go. And usually that's within about 3/1000ths of an inch for most of the stuff we're doing, which is insanely small, usually about, I think a human hair is 5,000, so it's pretty precise.
Absolutely, absolutely. Gavin, with this whole process, and you've shared a little bit about just the passion and the machining process, you guys visited the site, I believe, this morning. Did you attend JCI this morning?
Yes, we did.
Excellent. What was one of the biggest eye-opening parts of entering into that partnership's building and seeing their facility?
It was not like our machine shop at a school at all. Everything was on a much larger scale than I thought was possible with machining. When our single lathe, it felt like a children's toy compared to what they have. They have lathes that, in order to cut material, they have to move it with a giant overhead crane. You can't just put it into a chuck with your own hands because it's not that small. And the scale of everything has been very intense from what I'm used to.
Okay, I've been there, and it's an amazing facility. That is for sure. That is for sure. Luke, what's your takeaway from that experience this morning?
I got to see a lot of the larger lathes, and that was quite cool. He was working I believe it was Josh was working on a 23-foot drive shaft in the back of the shop, and the amount of material that they were cutting, the cutting fluid that they were using for it, it was just scaled up. It was really cool to see. It was really awesome to see something that I really enjoy to do, or really enjoy doing. Yeah.
And I believe that drive shaft goes into a vertical flood control pump that's submerged right along the edge of the river to control flooding and stuff like that. It's pretty amazing. Carter, what about your takeaway from that trip this morning?
I was also just impressed with the sheer scale of everything and how big it is. The mills at our high school are probably only about 8 feet tall, and the ones over at JCI, they had to have special concrete poured to set them on because they weigh like 60 or 70 tons, and they're as big as the room we're sitting in, if not bigger.
They're getting to see an opportunity after high school in the machining industry. They got to see engineers work with the machinist. Collectively, they got to see quality control people on the floor working with those guys, and they just have a lot of different experiences that they can go out and get a career into.
And that you brought up an excellent point. It's something you shared with me earlier on in this year. I think you said something about like once a week or once every 2 weeks, the engineers meet with the machinists to go through, and they work hand in hand. How does that process work?
Well, on Mondays, I was talking to Josh and Danny as they came over. I asked them what kind of they had meetings that they had to do, and I said, well, what are you doing with those meetings? I mean, my guys think that you just go and work in the machine shop, and they said, no, we talk with our engineers, we talk about the jobs that we have to do this week, ones we're behind on. They're having a meeting in which these kids don't get to see, and they need to be aware of it. That's what's part of being a machinist is.
So with all this opportunity that we are having these kids receive with real world industry opportunity, what are some of the projects that we currently do in our program that is kind of a smaller application of the things that they had the opportunity to see at JCI?
What we do in the metal tech class is we start off with a machining project. It's a meat tenderizer. It has a lot of different applications that machinists need to know, and I'll let Gavin speak to some of those processes that we use to build and make the meat tenderizer.
So the meat tenderizer, it was a good project to have an overview of all of the types of machinery in the shop, but the first tool we used isn't technically a machine, it's a foundry.
Okay.
I guess you could call it a machine, but it's just a really hot machine. We learned how to cast aluminum. We just took a mold of a block, and we learned how to create a mold out of this dirt mixture, and we heated up aluminum, poured it in, and with that, it's usually not clean. It's rough and it's not square at all, and that's when the actual machines would come in. We learned how to take it from that rough form and flatten out all the edges and make it perfectly square, so you could then get measurements off of it and go to actually finish machining with the actual points of the meat tenderizer.
So when you're working on the head, the aluminum that you've poured, you have to be able to put the ridges in the meat tenderizer, which means you have to turn the head of the mill at a 45-degree angle and put a end mill bit in it, and go to the precise measurements and cut them out and make sure that you have that nothing's off. You got to really be on point with it, or it might not look the best.
All right, so I've seen the head of it. Then the handle has a really unique texture to it. What process do you guys do to get that texture on the handle?
It's a special kind of tool that you put on a lathe called a knurling tool, which what it looks like is two wheels that have this engraved pattern into it. And what it does is it presses against the part that you're turning like very tightly. Those wheels will start turning and slowly press in that pattern and engrave it into it. And with that, when you slowly turn it on to automatically push along the piece you're cutting, it embeds that pattern into the aluminum and creates that textured grip.
Well, gentlemen, and I really appreciate you guys joining us. I just want to let everybody know that this is the first step in an amazing journey that the Lee Summit R7 School District's taking. JCI is the very first industry that is looking at joining us in a youth apprenticeship program, to the point to where students like yourself, after their junior year, if they have an interest in the machine tooling pathway, they can actually then join into a youth apprenticeship that is tied with the Department of Labor and enter into the workforce under that Department of Labor umbrella and continue receiving credit for working in industry. It is a 2-year program. They will be paid and have steps of pay raises accordance to the Department of Labor, to where at the end of 2 years, 1 year after graduation, those students would receive a Department of Labor apprenticeship certificate that is actually recognized across all 50 states. So if they choose to go into machining, they would be able to acquire that. So we're going to continue trying to provide opportunities for students in the Lee Summit R7 School District like yourself. Not everybody will jump on board with that, but I believe, is it Luke, you're looking at UCM for industry
engineering technologist.
Engineering technologist, but you're thinking of maybe just working in the summer
Yeah,
at
that's what I was
JCI,
planning.
and then going ahead and going to college, and then coming back and working in the summer and getting those experiences. And so as a school district, that is our big goal, is to give these students flexible opportunities to experience real world career and technical education in machining and potentially in the future automotive tech. But we really do appreciate you guys joining us today, sharing your knowledge. We may have a second Summit Up just following on how this adventure has worked for you guys. And Mr. Smith, keep doing the amazing things that you do with your students. And for those of you out there that are listening to this Summit Up, join us next time for another Summit Up with the Lee Summit R7 School District.
You've been listening to LSR7 Summit Up. Find more episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.